Since we're looking at the anterior view, these holes, what would we call these?
Anterior cephaloforamen.
Yes, the anterior cephaloforamen or foramen, and then remember transverse ridges. Please write that on your list. You do need to know transverse ridges. Okay? Now we just need to look at the coccyx very briefly.
What's the point of the coccyx?
The coccyx there's not a lot to it. Honestly, you have a few nerves that are passing through there, like the coccygeal nerve is really the only big one.
Are there any muscles attached to it?
I'm sure there are, I just don't know which ones. Tendons. Yeah. It's not completely without importance. Let's see. Coccyx is attached to the sacrum by ligaments. It is the human tailbone, a vestige of the tail that other vertebrates have. It's an irregular bone. There's not a big purpose for us since we don't have tails. But I think I told you last week that on very, very rare occasions, people actually will have a tail. It's true. It's a birth defect.
What is it called? A tail?
Tail. I don't have the technical term for it. But so as far as jobs, there's really nothing in particular that this is really important for. It can be removed and you're fine. But so you need to be able to identify the coccyx. Okay? All right, we are going to talk about ribs. And so you can view some good pictures on 138. Let's see if I can get a nice rib here. Okay. That's pretty good. All right, I've got everyone get your rib. Okay. So there's several structures you'll need to be able to identify. And then after that, I'll tell you how to know if you're holding a right or left rib. Okay? So first on our list is the angle. So the angle of the rib is essentially where it bends. So right around this region is the angle. Come on, focus. You can do it. You can focus. It was doing it before. Okay, well, focus. I don't know what the problem is. Okay, so where the curve occurs is the angle. What happened? Oh, because it's... There you go. Right here. This is the angle of the rib. The body of the rib is this whole portion here. So if we remember, we've used the term body before already when we were talking about the mandible. Remember? The body of the mandible. So this region is the body of the rib. Okay, so you always remember to specify of what bone you're naming it for. Okay, a few other parts first. We're going to look for the head of the rib. The head of the rib is at this point. I'm going to turn the rib over so you can see what's going on here a little better. Okay. So the head, you see this nice smooth portion here at the tip of the rib? This is what's articulating with the vertebra. This is the head of the rib. The next structure, the tubercle. In your book, it's called the articular facet on the tubercle, this bump right here. So this is the tubercle. The head's on the tip. Here's the tubercle. Between the tubercle and the head is this region of bone, and this is the neck. So the neck wraps all the way around. The head is on the end. The tubercle is below. Okay, let's close that a little bit.
What is it called in our book?
In your book, it's called the articular facet on tubercle. So we just made life easy, and it's just the tubercle of the rib, because that's another word that's used very often. Tubercle of the rib. Head of the rib. Neck of the rib. Okay? All of those terms are used a lot. Okay, head, tubercle, neck. Okay, so the other two structures of the rib that we have left is the costal groove and the costal margin. Okay, so you're going to hold your rib and feel the edges. Okay, so one edge is going to feel thinner or sharper than the other. One's going to feel pretty smooth and fat, and one's going to feel sharp. Okay, so the costal margin is that bottom edge. It's the sharp edge. Okay, so the costal margin is found on the inferior side of the rib. And the way I'm holding this right now helps, because you can also see this line here. And if you have a real rib, it's the best. You can feel a ridge. Okay, and that ridge right here above the costal margin is called the costal groove. You can just run your finger along it and feel the ridge. That costal groove is where you have your intercostal artery, vein, and nerve runs along that groove on every single rib. Yes?
Okay, so it doesn't show it in our book, so can we just...
It does. It's on page 138, the bottom picture, the costal groove.
I'm talking about the margin.
Then you can draw it in.
No, what I'm saying is, is it literally just right beside the area that says costal groove?
It's the bottom edge, the inferior edge of the rib. Yeah, so you may just go ahead and write it in. For some reason, it's not there. That's strange.
So the groove is like the literal, where you can see how it scoops down, kind of, but then the margin.
What? I'm sorry.
This part of the margin.
The bottom edge of the rib, or the inferior edge, is the costal margin. The groove right above it, that's the costal groove, or like that ridge, or whatever you want to call it. So if you look, let's say figure A, it shows a cross section of the rib, and it points to the costal groove. You can point down to the bottom edge of that and put costal margin. That's a good place to put it. I'm surprised they didn't have it here. Yes, was there another question?
Yeah, is the shaft the body? Are there...
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, the costal margin is shown on page 137 when you're looking at the full thoracic cage, or thoracic, the ribs. But we are not going to be looking at the full thing. We're looking at individual ribs. So the bottom edge is your costal margin, okay? Now, you know which end is inferior, okay? And you know where the head of the rib is found. So the head should be articulating with your vertebra. So let's see if you can place that rib on your body. Figure out if it's right or left, okay? So I'm going to do it with this one too. Mine is a right rib. So here's the head. Costal margin is here. It faces down, so it fits on the right side. Okay? So that's a very easy way to tell the sharp, right. That's your costal margin, facing down. Okay, guys. We just have a little bit left, please. So we've done everything for the ribs. We've discussed the difference between right and left and how you can determine that. we are going to look at the sternum very quickly. Because it's the last portion. This is where your ribs attach. And so we have, I think, one sternum that's separate. All the other ones are part of like a breastplate that, like you would see here. Okay? See if I can put it sideways to show it all. Yeah. Well, all of these are representing hyaline cartilage. That's where the ribs connect to the cartilage to the sternum. Okay. Very quickly, there are three main regions to the sternum. Okay, so we'll start with the top region. You can see the line here where it used to be, well, in development, it's three separate bones and then fuses together when you get older, just like sacrum and the coccyx. This portion here is the manubrium. Okay. The middle portion, from here to that line, this is the body of the sacrum.
Where?
The body of the sacrum is from this line to here. Body of the sacrum. This is where you'd be doing your CPR. Okay? And breaking things, yes. Okay, then the last section is the xiphoid process. This little projection of bone here. Okay? Okay, two more structures, and then we'll let you pick groups for testing. Okay, we have what's left is the clavicular facet and the suprasternal notch. And both of those are going to be found on the manubrium. So I'm going to zoom in here. So first of all, we're going to look at the suprasternal notch. Another term for that is the jugular notch, which may be what the book calls it the jugular notch. Suprasternal notch is the same thing. I would use the word I gave you on the list, okay? And that's going to be right here in the middle, on the top. You can feel it on yourself. Put your finger right on top of the manubrium. You can feel that little notch. There it is. Okay? It's pretty cool. And then either side, see if we can put it up a little bit. On either side of that suprasternal notch, you have two little indentations. They should be smooth. These are the clavicular facets. So you have a right and a left clavicular facet. That's where the clavicle, your collarbone, is going to articulate on either side of the manubrium. So again, if you find your manubrium again and move to one side, you can feel kind of a little dip. Hold it with one hand and move your arm. You can kind of feel the clavicle moving in that articulation. Okay, so that's the clavicular facet. Okay, so if there's something on the surface on either side, it's a clavicular facet. And since there's two, there's a right and a left, you'd have to say whether it's right or left. Okay, that is it for new structures today. The clavicle, cross it out. It's on the next page. The clavicle is part of the arm. So it's part of the pectoral girdle, which we'll do next week. So as a reminder, please listen. As a reminder, you have all of the vertebra, ribs, and sternum. You also have the major fontanelles of the fetal skull and the hyoid bone to know for next week. Okay?